John, Nostradamus, Confucius, the Mayans, Aztec, and Hopi. What's something that the divine, enlightened, and ancient all have in common? What did they see and predict during their time here on Earth when they saw visions of the end of days? Were the pictures they were given simply glimpses of the future or warnings of impending doom? Well, since history does repeat itself, let's take a look today and let's find out what predictions, dreams, and visions have come true, especially ones made eons ago. And in these days, do we see moral lessons we all need to pay a little more attention to? Or will we just hastily shrug them off as a few more amazing coincidences? Don't miss this exhilarating 3-part series on Edge of Wonder, Prophecies and the End Times.
Hey everyone, welcome to Edge of Wonder. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm supposed to be sitting 6 feet away from you.
Yes, you are.
And I'm Rob. Well, you guys, this is our first time back in the studio in a long time.
It is. It actually feels... we've been doing it online for so much that this
Everything's
is like,
the same.
wow.
We're all just really out of shape. That's pretty much it.
And very pale.
It's very pale. Well, everyone, there is a lot going on, and every day more and more things are being exposed, and it actually seems like a lot of prophecies are being fulfilled from all different cultures and beliefs. So could it be that we are actually in the end of times?
Well, I think it's safe to say that many of us do think that we have arrived at this final stage, but it doesn't mean this is the end of mankind, though. It just means that soon a new beginning will take place, or maybe a new era, one without the corruption of the evil agendas and the deep state, hopefully. Also, we believe that a lot of people have misunderstood certain prophesized events. For example, if a certain alignment happens, the moon turning blood red, or rivers turning red happens, it doesn't mean that the world is going to end on that day. To us, we believe these are signs of warning and letting us know that things are getting close to the final conclusion.
And believe it or not, there are so many prophecies from so many beliefs and cultures, it is going to be hard to fit it all into one episode. So we'll do our best to present what we found, but there is so much just in Revelations alone that we decided to focus more on that in this episode, but we'll also get into the other things. So let's dive right in. Also in this episode, we're going to talk about Nostradamus and some Eastern philosophies. The Book of Revelations. Well guys, in this section, we are only going to focus on Revelations. Obviously, there is so much in Revelations, it's hard to understand all of it, but we will start with the things we found that we can actually provide some evidence or clues to. Let's start with Revelations 9, 7-11, which says,
The shape of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men for 5 months, and they had as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon.
Now there's a lot to this one, but one thing this could be referring to are helicopters, which kind of look like swarms of locusts with crowns on their head. When the sun is reflecting on the blades, it would kind of look golden, or the crown could be referring to some of the insignias on the helicopter. Some helicopters even have teeth painted on them, and of course, they are very loud. And then their tails kind of look like scorpions, and the face of man could be how a person is inside flying it.
you know what I think it is, Ben? Murder hornets. You knew that was going to come in here, didn't you?
Yep.
The next part, though, is the most fascinating part about the bottomless pit, whose name is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon. Abaddon means destroyer or doom, and there is a belief that this could be referring to CERN or the Large Hadron Collider. This is where things really start to get interesting. The town in France where CERN is located is called Saint-Genis-Poli, and I probably butchered that.
Well, the name Poli comes from the Latin word apollicum, and we have talked in previous episodes that in Roman times a temple existed in honor of Apollo around that area, and the people who lived there believed that it was a gateway to the underworld. Many of us believe this is why CERN was built where it was.
Don't forget that CERN's logo is 3 6s on top of each other, which of course is 666. And then CERN is taken from Cernunnos, the horn god of the underworld, who is also Kronos and all part of Saturn worship. But on top of that, even the US Secretary of Energy, Ernest Moniz, admitted when talking about CERN that they do work in parallel universes. And then of course, Sergio Bertolucci, the director of CERN, even said that they are trying to open doorways in which he says, quote, out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it, unquote. I mean, that's his quote, not ours.
Yeah. So what does CERN have to do with helicopters? Well, Saint-Genis-Poli is connected to Geneva, which is basically the headquarters of the entire Lumadonkey, which includes every international organization you can think of, including NATO, which has its own helicopters, and one of them is called a horse. So we have stated before in previous episodes that we believe CERN could have caused some of these Mandela effects with their weird and twisted experiments, not to mention opening portals to something like...
What are these people doing, Ben?
Yeah, like Stranger Things or something like that, right?
Yeah, seriously. Also, I mean, quantum computers are involved, and even Geordie Rose, the creator of D-Wave computers, explained how they are trying to bring back the old ones, which is an H.P. Lovecraft saying, for the great demons to this reality. Was the Bible warning us all of this time? Also, we know how the Illuminati are obsessed with prophecies and trying to bring forward the end times and the final battle.
Also, just a side note, CERN also has the god Shiva in front of it, who is also the god of destruction, which goes right along with Abaddon in some ways. And just to add a cherry on top of this, of all people, Tom Hanks was asked to turn the switch on for the LHC in 2008, and how Sally Field's brother is a scientist at CERN. And of course, there are 2 Mandela effects related to her. One is her name, in which most of us remember as Sally Fields instead of Sally Field, and also her speech for winning the Oscar, which is also different from what most of us remember.
Well, that was a long paragraph, and my brain melted twice. Good job. I had no idea he turned the switch on for that. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm like, why?
Well, just after all of our research over the last couple of months, like, what isn't this guy into? This is the weirdest crap.
It's so weird.
Jeez. Well, anyway, before we continue on and really start blowing your mind, we wanted to state that this next part could get a bit hard for people to grasp or accept. We want to state up front that we are not trying to present this as fact. We are simply putting together a lot of information that we came across and what was revealed to us as we dived deep into this. Also, just to take note, John never mentioned a country or even a specific group of people, for that matter, in Revelations.
Also, we have to remember that Christianity, the actual religion, didn't come along until a few hundred years after Jesus' resurrection. I mean, we don't like to say his death, so we're using it resurrection. During that time, Christians were mostly known as followers of Christ. So keeping this in mind, we wanted to take a step back and look at the overall global picture.
Because it seems that China is at the center stage of everything that is happening right now, we decided to start looking there. Also, because of the mass number of people in China, the Chinese people have been persecuted the most by its own government than any country ever in our history. Also, the CCP are and have persecuted more Christians right now, along with Falun Gong practitioners, than any country to date. In Revelations 12:1-3, it says,
A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its head.
Now, what is interesting is that on September 23rd, 2017, a brief but biblical alignment occurred over Jerusalem. The woman clothed with the sun seemed to be the constellation Virgo, the Virgin, as it being in September. The sun, of course, was in the center of Virgo. And on this day, the moon was under Virgo's feet, and the planet Jupiter, the king planet, was positioned near where a woman would give birth. And then the planets Mercury, Venus, and Mars, along with the 9 stars that make up the constellation Leo, rested above her head, which makes up 12 stars.
You might want to watch that paragraph over. And I mean, now to us, this didn't mean the world would end at this time, as some predicted. We take it to mean that this era in time is fulfilling a prophecy. Also, what we are finding is that Revelations doesn't really go in order of events, but is saying what each event could be. But let us continue breaking down the rest of this. Now, the red dragon, from our understanding, is China.
Yeah, during the start of the persecution of Falun Gong, Geng Zi, who we'll get back here to shortly, was the party leader, and there were 7 heads in control during that time. They were all vicious officials who went along with Zhang's order to kill Falun Gong practitioners, carrying out the persecution against Christians, along with other minority groups. In Revelations 13:1, it says,
The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name.
What is interesting is that Geng Zi was born in the city of Shanghai, where he also began his political career. Shanghai in Chinese literally means rise from the sea.
Well, continuing on from 13:2, it says,
Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And to it the dragon gave his power, and his throne, and great authority.
In literary circles, the old communist bloc has often been nicknamed a leopard. The grizzly bear was the mascot of the Soviet Union. Thus, having the feet of a bear and skin of a leopard symbolizes the beast walking down the same path as the old communists. Zhang's zodiac sign is the Leo, which is the lion, so it could mean that he is of the lion praising communism that rose out of the sea.
But there's more to this. The part where it says, and to the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority, this could mean that the red dragon, or the CCP in this case, allowed Zhang to rise to power and become the leader of China. Then in 13:3 and 4 it says,
One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?
So this could reference a time in 1999 when the Minister of Propaganda, Ding Guanggen, temporarily retreated from politics due to illness and disagreements with Jiang Zemin over economic reforms. For a while, it looked like his career would be over, but Ding ended up returning as a member of the Politburo and vice head of the 610 office, which was the Chinese Gestapo, for carrying out the persecution and organ harvesting of Falun Gong specifically. After opening up the Chinese economy, quote, all the world marveled and followed the beast. Thanks to Bill Clinton, who made an agreement with Jiang Zemin as China entered the World Trade Organization and completely took all the world's markets in a matter of years. In 13:5-7, it says,
And the beast was given a mouth, uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them.
This is actually the part that makes us believe that Zhang is truly one of the antichrists that the Bible speaks of. On June 13th, 1999, the Central Committee issued an official document pressed by Zhang, which ordered all of the CCP's departments throughout China to engage in combat with Falun Gong. In the days that followed, the CCP's propaganda machine began with the preparations for a full-blown nationwide hate campaign against Falun Gong and all that it represents: truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance.
Why are you going to go after these people? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So exactly 42 months later, on the dot, on November 15th, 2002, during the 16th Party Congress of the CCP, Geng resigned as the party's secretary. Now, for Geng, it meant the end of his authority over the CCP's propaganda machine. Now, could this just be a coincidence? Maybe, but it is super eerie that this was exactly 42 months later as the Bible mentions. Also, the persecution of the Christians became extremely intense during this time in China.
This is now where Revelations mentioned the second beast rising out of the earth with two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon, branding people with the mark of the beast, which is 666. There are a lot of interpretations out there on what possibly this could be, but the one that we found most fascinating is that this could be referring to how the West praised China and everything they were doing, essentially turning America into communism but doing it subvertly. Now again, we are only presenting what we found here, but many people say that Obama could be the second beast.
Oh, cue the photo of him with that towel around his head and the joint in his mouth. Okay, and before everyone freaks out, did you know that on the day Obama got elected in his home state of Illinois, the pick 3 lottery numbers were 666? You can't make this stuff up. Also, when you multiply 6 times 3, you get the number 18. Believe it or not, that is the number of the letters in Barack Hussein Obama's name. But it doesn't end here. Also, a part of Chicago has the area code 60606.
Again, you can't make this stuff
Symbolism will be their downfall, is all I gotta say for that.
For this episode, we won't say too much more on Obama or go wide into people who have accused him of treason.
But don't worry, we're gonna get into that.
We sure will. So we have a massive expose on Obama, who he really was, and why the Secret Service called him renegade. So check that out on who Obama really is. But on the surface, Obama claimed to be a Christian, but it seems he was trying to undo many things related to Christianity while actually promoting the Islam faith.
I was just gonna say, by Christianity, did he mean Muslim? Because that's what he was.
Yeah.
But anyway, we don't want to alert the censors here.
Yeah. So let's back up.
Yeah, Biden 2020. However, let's get back to Revelations. In 13:13, it says,
He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
This could be related to how Obama had the power of the US military behind him, and there is also something that Hillary Clinton said herself while running against Obama in 2012. She did say the line, quote, "The sky will open, the light will come down, celestial choirs will be singing, and everyone will know that we should do the right thing, and the world will be perfect," unquote. Why is that coming out of Hillary's mouth? Now, this could be a stretch, but interesting nonetheless, considering they might be running together in the next election if they don't get arrested first.
So she was kind of like alluding to the fact that she was kind of mocking Obama during this time because they're running together, but now it's like everything's being revealed that they've been working together the whole time.
Oh, they have,
So,
right.
yeah.
It was like two sides of the same coin, basically,
Yes,
those two.
seriously. But also related to the 666, some people believe it is about implanting microchips in our bodies, and Bill Gates does own the patent for WO 2020-060606, which is about controlling a person's sensory functions using monitors or even computers. Really though, even before this, people were saying that the meaning of 666 could be chip implants, and now Bill Gates has a patent for this and he's behind the global vaccine. Is he trying to be funny and mock us, or is he actually being serious about it?
It's like, I feel like these people just get in a room and open up the Bible and they're like, we gotta try to do this part. it says microchips here, so I think this is the direction I need to go, or whatever.
You might be right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, there's another factor involved with the 666 in this too. The Chinese language is quite unique as it makes use of pictographic characters. The two Chinese characters that mean communism both have a total of 6 strokes in each character. The character Jiang also has 6 strokes, so combine these 3 pictographic characters together, each with 6 strokes, you get 666, which is Jiang's communism.
Yeah, so in one sense, the 666 could actually mean all of these things, since they're all people who seem to be working together anyway. I mean, even Bill Illuminati Gates actually made a deal with Jiang in 2002, giving China all kinds of open source codes to all kinds of apps and programs and software. They even seemed to already be using this level of technology against their own citizens, and I'm sure they're probably using it to secretly spy on Americans too.
And you know they're spying on Ben and I for writing this script.
I'm sure they are.
Also, back in 1997, the LA Times exposed that Senator Dianne Feinstein's husband, Richard C. Blum, began investing in China, and how her role as a senator gave China trade privileges. The article points out that she personally met with Chinese leader Jiang Zemin 3 times, bringing her husband along each time. The article even states,
Feinstein and her counterpart in Shanghai at the time, Jiang Zemin, who is now China's president, agreed in 1986 to designate various corporate entities to foster trade and other business relations. One was named Shanghai Pacific Partners. Blum served as a director.
Also, there's that Netflix show, The Report, that movie that came out that glorifies Dianne Feinstein as like the, greatest thing that ever happened to the Democratic Party with, this report that they had made that was supposed to expose things. And here you go, here's her husband investing in China, the worst regime that's ever existed in China, the Chinese Communist Party, right?
I didn't even know much about her until I started really researching this anyway. So
I know.
That was like, why would you make a movie about... There's so many great people you can make a movie about. Why her?
I mean, obviously it was to glorify the Democratic Party as this, they care about freedom or something.
Yeah.
But why does she have why does she have this special connection with Shanghai is the question,
Yeah. So the point of all of this is to show how the Western cabal is completely tied to the CCP, which, I hate to say it, but a lot of it is the Democratic Party. I mean, then again, of course, you have a lot of Republicans like the Bush family and everything else, but I mean, we're talking about the cabal as an overall thing here, being pointed out in the book of Revelations. With Joe Biden, the Clintons, the Bush family, Obama, and the list would be never ending, honestly, of all the people that have worked with China right now. All you need to do is to see who is sticking up for the CCP and who is speaking out against it. That's pretty much it. Again, this has nothing to do with the Chinese people, for they are the ones being persecuted the most. Now, in Revelation 16:13, it says,
Then I saw 3 impure spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet.
Dude, after reading that, what is crazy is all of those people look like toads. Jiang Zemin is even called that in China, man.
Yeah, some even believe that Jiang's soul is a toad, like a toad demon, reincarnated to wreak havoc on the world. There are even Buddhist temples that have images on it of divine warriors battling a toad demon. And I actually saw these.
No, and you guys, I'm not laughing because I think that's ridiculous. I'm laughing because I think it's true, just to be clear.
There's all kinds of references of Jiang being a toad in China.
You look into those eyes if you dare to, and that's all you can friggin' see. All right, anyway, as for the whore of Babylon, Hillary Clinton, there are many interpretations of this. Some believe it's talking about Beijing and the blood on the CCP's hands. Some think it's talking about, who I just said, herself and the blood on her hands. Some think it's about the Middle East. Some even have said that it's Hollywood and the entertainment industry, the deep state as a whole, or even the Vatican. In many ways, it could be all of these. I like that answer, it's all of these. So choose your poison here. But it's super interesting how the entire entertainment industry completely sold out to China. Even AMC theaters are now owned by China. AMC and Regal are both owned by the same people, aren't they? Isn't it the same now?
I don't know.
They're all owned by China anyway.
China's
Look into
buying
it.
everything.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So in the essence of the fall of Babylon, there have been so many interpretations of this. Again, we are not trying to say this is the answer. We are just bringing up a possible explanation to all of this. In Revelations 18:2-4, it says,
Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Then I heard another voice from heaven say, Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues, for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes.
Now again, there can be a lot of interpretations of where and what this is, but we feel like this could be directly talking about Beijing. Beijing could very possibly be a dwelling of demons, since we all know of the horrendous crimes the Chinese Communist Party has done with the widespread live organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners, Christians, and Uyghurs. The selling of adrenochrome, which we found on sale on numerous Chinese sites coming out of Wuhan, forced slave labor, the mass killing of the Chinese people with numbers over 100 million since the CCP came into power, and now the massive cover-up behind what we are calling the CCP virus.
Now, we are seeing various officials and leaders, as well as all kinds of organizations such as the World Health Organization, selling out for their own selfish gains and disregarding their own countries. Many have committed extreme sexual acts, or these honeypots as they're called, in which attractive women seduce various officials, but secretly they are CCP spies. These situations are then filmed and then used to entrap people, and those films become blackmail. Many have committed horrible sexual crimes against children and even committed murder, which is all being used to blackmail these people.
The ending of this verse, where it is asking people to come out to not share in her sins or not receive any of her plagues, is that a movement started in the early 2000s by Chinese people called Tuidong, or simply quitting the party. Since this movement started, over 350 million Chinese people have renounced the party. That's more people than are in America, people.
That is.
On the surface, it seems that people are quitting, but some of the stories after people have quit are really, really incredible, such as people's illnesses being healed, family feuds ending, people finding happiness. These are just a few miracles that seem to have taken place after people have quit the party.
When Chinese people join the party, they swear a blood oath to the CCP, or strictly speaking, to the blood red dragon. In essence, it's almost as if people are giving their allegiance to the darkness. Since they have to renounce their faith in any belief, the party has now become their god. But by renouncing the CCP, God and divine beings can now look after that person, and many believe they are no longer bound by the party's fate, which is doomed to fall into the bottomless pit of
Abyss of pit of hell stuff. Now, Revelations 18:8 says,
Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her.
Now, the weird thing is, this seems to be about where we are in Revelations if everything we are saying is true. With the virus being spread all over, and now there seems to be a famine hitting a lot of countries, with some fearing that if our country doesn't open up soon, this too could affect the US.
The rest of Revelations 18 speaks of how the merchants will be in mourning and weep because no one buys their merchandise anymore. And this is kind of what's happening with the world in China. Since China is producing so much of the world's products, it seems that this could be about China. However, at this point, the fall of Babylon could be many large and great cities of all over the world, but China does seem to be at the center of this.
Coming into Revelations 18:21, it says,
Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone, and threw it into the sea, and said, With such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again.
And we're wondering if this is referring to a possible asteroid hitting or something similar. Since this hasn't happened, it's hard to say. There was an asteroid that came very close to Earth just months ago, but as of yet, no one knows for sure.
At this point in Revelations, the tone completely changes as it now mentions the coming of the Messiah and the recreation of heaven and earth for the people who are left and Satan being bound for 1,000 years. We believe that the New Jerusalem is more of a metaphor for the new world, which will be filled with all kinds of wondrous things along with the light from God or the divine.
Now let's talk about Nostradamus, who is one of the most famous prophets in our world and who has predicted many things that have come true. One of his more famous quatrains is the one where he predicted JFK's death.
The great man will be struck down in the day by a thunderbolt, an evil deed foretold by the bearer of a petition. According to the prediction, another falls at nighttime, conflict at Reims, London, and a pestilence in Tuscany.
President John Kennedy, known as the Great Man, received numerous death threats or petitions over the course of his presidency. Of course, we all know that on November 22nd, 1963, the president was shot more than once, which could be the thunderbolt, while in Dallas. Then, just after midnight, Bobby Kennedy was later assassinated.
There are also fake quatrains out there too, such as one talking about referencing 9/11 as the two birds will bring down the two twins. This is completely fake, along with one talking about Trump being hit with a deadly illness. There's what seems like a quatrain talking about 9/11, but it's not as straightforward. Also, many articles online mention that Nostradamus talked about people walking around with chips in their bodies, but no quatrain ever accompanied these claims. Maybe it was Bill Gates that wrote those quatrains after sitting there reading the Bible and trying to make sense of it.
And then having his book, what's that book he has, the how to fake statistics or something?
Oh my God, too good.
Like why? Like what? I don't even know.
Yeah, that was on his top 10 books to read.
How to fake statistics.
It was something like that, or like
It wasn't that direct, but it was something.
how to lie with statistics.
Yeah, like,
or
or how to what's something like that. I read the entire book of Nostradamus, and there was nothing that actually stood out. Because I was looking for it. I was like, man, where is it? Everyone kept referencing it, but no one showed what it is because it's not in there. However, what did stand out was probably his most famous quatrain because it includes an exact date, which is 1999, where it says,
In the year 1999, in the 7th month, from the sky will come the great king of terror, bringing back to life the great king of the Mongols, before and after Mars reigns, in the name of bringing people happiness.
Now, a lot of scholars and articles online claim this was about 9/11, but missed the date or this never came to pass. However, because this references Mongolia directly, we understood that this was talking about China. And once again, Geng Zi's name comes up when you start to break this down.
In the 7th month of 1999, which was July 1999, after writing the letter in June, Geng Zi officially banned the practice of Falun Dafa and ordered the entire CCP to crack down on Falun Gong and made it illegal to practice from that point on. Thousands of people were arrested within weeks, and to this day, the persecution continues along with the live organ harvesting and adrenochrome harvesting of children, as we stated earlier.
The part where it says, from the sky, a great king of terror, could be the entire media propaganda, the police, the legal system, and of course, the CCP itself, crashing down on Falun Gong practitioners and underground Christians, as if the sky came down on top of them. Geng even said to the nation about Falun Gong, ruin their reputation, bankrupt them financially, and destroy them physically.
Now, the part where Nostradamus says to bring back to life the king of the Mongols could have two meanings. The king of the Mongols was Genghis Khan. So this could be either describing that the CCP wanted to bring in the terror that Genghis Khan created, or, seen in a different light, force the Messiah to come to Earth to begin the Holy War. If you guys haven't seen our 5 Greatest Warriors episode from a year ago, you should check that out. We had a lot of fun making that one. But there is a quote from Genghis Khan, who said,
I am the punishment from God. If you have not committed these great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
Like, imagine him saying that to a country. Just kneel. Seriously. Well, anyway, this means even though he did bad things, it seems that he was there as a retribution for people who've done bad things. We're referring to Genghis Khan right now. Now, this could be the exact case in what the CCP is doing right now with all of its insane, horrible crimes against humanity.
Now, the final part is hard for people to understand, but when you have visions of things that haven't yet come to pass or don't exist at all, a lot of it comes in metaphorically.
The way you can, like, the way I try to explain this to people is like, you know, in dreams when things happen and you have to translate those things in dreams, it's very similar with visions. So if you guys, a lot of people are like, oh, visions, those are weird, and like, you're weird if you have them, but it's not. It's just like a waking dream, really. You can think of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example is the lotuses wearing the armor, right? Which could be the helicopters, because I mean, 2,000 years ago, you can't even comprehend.
Yeah, I mean, those guys seeing a freaking helicopter, they're like, lotus flowers? I mean, what was that?
Or lotuses.
Yeah, lotuses, right?
Yeah. But anyway, so in this case, we started thinking about this. Mars is the red planet known for war. But what if Nostradamus was using Mars as a metaphor? What if he was actually referring to Marx, as in Karl Marx, and his red communism? If Nostradamus was actually referring to Marx, then he could be directly talking about communism here, which is what the party believes in. And the final part of before and after Mars and bringing people happiness is even similar to a quote that Marx said himself in his Communist Manifesto book.
The abolition of religion as the illusory happiness of the people is the demand for their real happiness.
Now, you guys at home might be thinking, well, why wouldn't Nostradamus just say it directly? What in any of his prophecies were said directly? None of it. It was like he had to say it that way. Because if there isn't us guessing at home about what he's talking about, it's too direct, and I think there are rules revolved around this.
Well, and all, yeah, exactly. Even he knew it, because he was being pressured by the king. They were. I mean, he eventually got arrested by the king, and they killed him. So he had to put everything into cryptic writings. And on top of that, communism didn't exist during that time. So if you're seeing a vision of hundreds of years in the future related to some kind of element of communism, I mean, Mars being the red planet would be, because the red planet's the planet of war.
It's so close to that, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why not? Draw the comparison. Now, we may have to take a pause here while most of y'all's at home pick up the pieces of your mind off the ground after we just blew it up with this entire episode. And again, you guys, we are only presenting our understanding of what we found. You don't have to subscribe to or listen to this, but we do highly encourage everyone to look more deeply into this yourselves, because it is nuts.
But please hit like and subscribe below.
We always forget to ask you guys to do that.
You don't have to subscribe to what we're saying, but make sure you subscribe to our channel.
Good one, Ben.
Okay. In our last episode, we mentioned the book Tubei 2, which is a book of Chinese prophecies written as 60 poems similar to Nostradamus. We also mentioned that each poem describes a prophecy about a Chinese historical event that will most likely occur in order. For example, the 36th poem should occur before the 37th poem, and so on.
We gave some examples and broke down some that have occurred and some that have yet to occur. In this episode, we wanted to talk about number 59, which is very hopeful to all of mankind, since talking about Armageddon and all is kind of depressing sometimes. You agree?
No castles, no walls, no my, no yours. The entire world becomes one family. Prosper throughout the globe. One man for the entire world's joy. Follows God's will and prospers the world. Red, yellow, black, white, all together. North, east, south, west. In total harmony.
This seems that the world will truly come together after overcoming a difficult hardship, which is referenced in poem number 58, and all the nations and races will unite and live in total harmony together. And we don't mean, uniting in the New World Order kind of way. This is a true uniting of the people to make way for a glorious future. The drawing is of a scholar pulling a straw out of a cup, which is a Chinese oracle. It means that mankind will do things according to God's will.
Finally. Also, the no my, no yours really seems to say people will let go of wants and desires and will be compassionate to others and truly come together. They will create and do things for the advancement of the human race as a whole instead of just for themselves.
We also want to mention the Taoist religion. There are many prophecies that pertain to what the future holds in coming into the end times. One in particular is about a Messiah-type figure who will appear at the end of the world cycle to rescue the chosen people. It is stated that this person will be distinguished by certain talismans, practices, and virtues holding the name of Li Hong.
Myths surrounding Li Hong took shape in literature during the Han Dynasty. He is depicted in the Taoist divine incantation scripture as an ideal leader who would reappear to set right heaven and earth at a time of upheaval and chaos. It is said sometimes he is considered to be an avatar or reincarnation of Lao Tzu himself, who is the founder of Taoism. Also, during the Tang Dynasty around 650 AD, there was a crowned prince who was the grandson of the great emperor Taizong with the name Li Hong. Unfortunately, his fate wasn't a very pleasant one. As he grew older, he often came in conflict with his ambitious and powerful mother, Empress Wu, and it is commonly believed by traditional historians that she poisoned him to death in 675.
Yeah. Well, you guys, this is all the time we had for in this episode. There is so much out there. We could do a whole entire series on this, but we felt that these were the parts that were the most important and which everyone was talking about.
But yeah, we weren't even able to get into the Aztec, Vikings, Hopi, Mayans, and more on what Buddhism says, or of all of the other parts of the Bible. So this leaves room for a future episode on this matter since this is always ongoing.
Yeah, and the Hopi is very fascinating, so be on the lookout for a future episode at some point. And we want to thank all of you again for supporting us on EOW.TV. We'll see you guys out
On the edge of a new era. We said that together, which made it cooler. That's what we did.
You got a feather on your hair. Oh. Okay. There you go. Just happen to see it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. That better make it to the bloopers.
Why you got a feather in your hair? I don't know.
Did a bird land on my head? I have no idea.
Put a feather in your cap and call it macaroni?
Oh, jeez.